Climate change. It's one of the most pressing issues humanity and the planet are facing. Switching to renewable, more sustainable sources of energy is becoming an increasingly popular method of reducing our contribution to global warming. One of these promising sources is wind energy. Wind energy is expanding, and more wind farms are being established across the United States. But climate change solutions aren't that simple. What if a solution to one environmental problem creates other environmental problems? That's exactly what may be on the horizon with wind energy. Wind energy is very promising and should be expanded, but at what cost? Of course, there are numerous threats to birds out there, and a lot of them are bigger bird killers than wind turbines. Look at this chart of bird mortality rates in the US and Canada for different anthropogenic causes, meaning things caused by human activity. See how minuscule wind turbine mortalities are? Who cares about that when cats kill so many birds? Well, they say numbers don't lie, and that may be true, but they can be presented in a way that is seriously misleading. See how these statistics are for birds in general? By most estimates, North America is home to around 1,000 bird species. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology estimates that that number is actually closer to 2,000. And there are roughly 10,000 bird species across the whole world. The amount of variation across these species is not insignificant. Grouping all birds together for statistics in order to claim that wind turbines are not the menace that bird activist groups claim they are is irresponsible. We must take into account how different these different birds are, and how these differences can mean some groups of birds are at much higher risk than others. What type of bird is more at risk here? Raptors, also known as birds of prey. These predatory birds include hawks, eagles, falcons, owls, vultures, kites, osprey, harriers, and buzzards. To put things into perspective, we're going to be comparing raptors with passerines, otherwise known as songbirds. These make up over half of the world's bird species and include birds like sparrows, wrens, crows, jays, chickadees, cardinals, and many more. An estimated 134 to 230,000 passerines are killed by wind turbines in North America annually, compared to an estimated 83,000 raptors. Considering that passerines are greater in number, it makes sense that more passerines are being killed. But these death rates are not proportional to their population sizes. When we look at these numbers as portions of their total populations, it becomes clear that raptors are killed by turbines at a far higher rate than passerines. There are over 6 billion individual passerines in North America, but less than 50 million raptors. The average passerine species in North America has a population of over 22 million. For raptor species, that number is less than 1 million. Why are raptors hitting these wind turbines so much? Well, one major reason is their wind-specific flight behavior and their tendency to fly at high winds. Ever seen a hawk soaring way up in the sky? Beyond being at greater risk of hitting turbines in the first place, raptors are at greater risk of population declines too. This is because they tend to be long-lived birds that don't start breeding until later in life, have smaller clutches of eggs, and typically raise only one clutch per breeding season. Not to mention that not every egg laid equals one new raptor raised into adulthood. For example, the estimated portion of red-tailed hawks that die within their first year of life is 80%. The reproductive output of raptors is simply not as high as that of other birds, and this isn't unusual for predatory animals. Let's look back at some numbers. That raptor mortality rate due to wind turbines is 0.177%. If you're thinking that's a really small number, you'd be right. But think about how that adds up over time, especially as wind energy is expanding rapidly. If that mortality rate remained constant, after 50 years, nearly 4 million raptors would be gone from North America, which is over 8% of their total North American population. And that mortality rate won't actually remain constant. It's going to increase, and in reality, more raptors are going to be killed. But wind energy has so much potential. So what can we do without sacrificing this powerful tool? Well, one of the most important and impactful things we can do starts before new wind farms are constructed in the first place. When I talked to Dr. Christopher McClure from the Peregrine Fund, a raptor conservation organization, he told me that placement of these turbines is what really makes a major impact. We need to do assessments of potential locations before building wind farms in order to make sure we put wind turbines somewhere they'll have minimum negative impact on the ecosystem around them, with an emphasis on raptors. This goes beyond just areas where raptors nest. Remember that migration is something we need to take into account too. What can we do in addition to placement, and what can we do with wind farms that are already established, though? Different methods of preventing collision have been and are being tested by researchers right now. Let's take a look at some promising methods. One of these is Identiflight. According to Identiflight International, Their mission is to further growth of renewable energy by minimizing wildlife impacts while maximizing energy production. How does it work? Identiflight has an array of 8 cameras for a maximized field of view. Identiflight is constantly analyzing the sky, and when it detects movement, it turns its cameras towards the source of that movement. Then, Identiflight determines the distance, velocity, and species of the bird. What's more, its system improves through enhancements and machine learning over time. Identiflight International says that the overwhelming advantage of Identiflight over other approaches is the ability to determine species in real time. When a bird is spotted, Identiflight International says that the curtailment module analyzes the flight path in relation to surrounding wind turbines and determines whether to curtail. If the bird is determined to be in danger of collision, Identiflight's system sends out a curtailment signal, curtailing the turbine in the bird's flight path. Data collected by the Identiflight system goes into a centralized database for real-time analysis. Operators of wind farms using Identiflight technology can analyze the collected data. One significant study published in 2021 found an 82% decrease in eagle fatalities with the use of Identiflight technology. Other solutions have been proposed too. Researchers in Norway found in one small-scale study that just by painting one of the 3 blades on each wind turbine black, the annual mortality rate at a Norwegian wind farm decreased by more than 70%. Although this method would require halting wind turbines in order to paint them, it wouldn't require movement to be halted after everything is up and running. When this study was published in 2020, it caused quite a storm among scientists working toward raptor conservation, and a North American recreation on a larger scale may be a possibility in the future to test the efficacy of this method. As conservationists who want to protect animal species, we should not outright renounce wind energy. Instead, we should be looking for ways to make it better for our beloved flying friends. And as environmentalists who want to make the world more sustainable, we shouldn't brush off the concerns raised about bird mortality caused by wind turbines. The truth is, climate change is a complex issue. It's not as simple as the Earth is getting hot. And that means that its solutions aren't going to be simple either. We need to acknowledge these complexities, listen to concerns, and work together to make our response to climate change the best that it can be.